All right. Well, I'm going to start off. So yeah, we're a design animation company, and I'm going to start off showing those who don't know our work some of our work. So let's have a look. Cool, so that's how we taste our work. Thank you. And this is our online portfolio. And so we do a large range of design styles and animation techniques, from 2D to 3D animation, from cell animation to stop motion, to go motion to live action. And I'm going to look back during this presentation and look at how we've added some diversity to our portfolio. Because it's not always easy adding a new medium to your portfolio. And the reason is, often a client will come to you based on something they've seen here, right? And that makes sense. You know, in my life, I think it's true for companies, but also freelancers. If I'm looking for a freelancer, I'm going to look for someone who's really going to suit the job I'm looking for them to do. So, you know, hopefully they've done it before. And so it wasn't always easy for us to get a seat at the table if we hadn't already got something in our portfolio that was very similar to that. So do the work that you want to be asked to do. So I'm a true believer in being really proactive and showing the world what you want to do, rather than waiting to be being asked. And at Buck, we're constantly wanting to try new styles and techniques and kind of push ourselves, right, into new areas. So we choose, what we do is we choose projects that we invest our time to. And we call these passion projects. And I'm going to play a few passion projects that we've done recently, starting with one that a title sequence that we did for the AMP Awards, which is the music awards in New York. And I'm going to use these passion projects to talk about some points about passion projects.
Oh crackers, your brain is not coming up with any good ideas. It's so hard to please other people. Asterisk sigh, asterisk.
So we just pause it there. So self-initiated projects are hard to do. And by self-initiated, I mean when you are the client. So you've got no guidelines, no brief, no deadline, no postings. There's obviously no client, there's no money. And so having a client come to you with a great creative brief might be a great opportunity, even if they have a little bit or no money. Because it gives you a set of boundaries, and it gives you something to pick up and run with. Let's keep playing.
Analyzing waveform. Generating new sequence. Yo, check this out. I make the music. I win awards. I get the gold, the cars, and the best looking robo babes. We definitely pop in bottles tonight. Everybody is gonna know my name. It's Daniel. Yeah.
Okay. So my next point is you get to enjoy it and have fun, and you make some fart jokes along the way, you know. Passion projects often produce our best work, and in turn, they often lead to winning awards, which gets our work out there and advertises the kind of work that we want to be doing more of. This is another side project that we recently finished. Okay, so feed the world a smile, feed your studio a smile, you know. Everyone loves working on a passion project. They're great for the culture of the studio, and they really bring out the best in everyone.
Oh, there you go. Another steaming pile of bullshit. Is that what America wants? You want to eat some farm foods? Bullshit. Honey, what'd you go to the store today? Oh, just some bullshit. Oh, that is fresh. Oh, hello there. I'm an organic seed. About to eat some manure. Ha!
Okay, so this was a project that we recently did promoting organic seeds. And so that's my next point, is that you can use this as a chance to do something really good in the world or do something for something that you believe in. And my last point is mistakes.
Next up is Buck, and that begins with that then. You fucked up! Whatever. Oh,
Oops, oh shit, that's my head.
Sorry, face. You said purse, not merce.
Fuck me.
You blew it that time.
I learned it from watching you. Bring it down. You can see the tape on my booty. Yeah.
I still love that so much. So this is something we did back in 2011. It's a long time ago now. It was for a title sequence for a conference very much like this called F5. So mistakes, you know, when you're doing something new, you're going to make mistakes. You know, we often make mistakes, and it's a sign that you're growing and you're learning. And it's far better to make mistakes on your own time than during a client project when there's a lot more pressure and there's a lot more at stake. And so, you know, to sum up, I guess all of our passion projects have made us stronger as a company and have led to more work. Puppets have led to more puppets, stop motion to stop motion. Goopy Weird Trippy Cell has led to more Goopy Weird Trippy Cell. So let's jump to more recent times. So 2 years ago, we opened the studio office, the Sydney office. And we've now got 13 amazingly talented artists, and we're based just down the road in Surrey Hills. And in those 2 years, we've done 3 passion projects. And so I just want to look at those because we've taken on each one for completely different reasons. So I want to do a little bit of a behind the scenes and talk about why we did each of these projects. Starting off with this project for Blend. So Blend is an animation festival in Vancouver, and they asked us if we'd be interested in doing the title sequence for the first conference that they were having. And we felt like this was a great project a great first project for the office. We'd start the office on a high, we'd have a lot of fun, and I think a lot of that fun has kind of come through in the work. But most importantly, we'd get to learn about each other in a slightly less stressful environment because we'd be working together for the first time. So they gave us it was a very open brief. They said to us that they didn't want to see the final product until they were in the audience watching with everyone else. It was pretty open. Like I said, it was called Blend, and the one thing they gave us was the theme, Blend. So we started off looking at all of the people speaking at the event, and we decided to blend the letters and kind of mix them up and see if we could tell a story getting from one person to the next. And we came up with this idea of creating anagrams. So Buck, Ryan, Honey, so Ryan was speaking, back your horny new, hunky rye bacon. My favourite is probably racy bony hunk. But we ended up going with crayon be hunky. And for Jason Martison from Sony Imageworks, we went with monkeys gonna sanitize worm jars. And so we basically came up with all these cool anagrams, and then we decided to, would illustrate them and animate them. And so we came up with this really playful illustration style that's just dying to be animated. And then this is to show the kind of structure of the piece. It's quite a long piece, so I'm not going to play it all for you. But essentially, you went from an image to the speaker to an image to another image to the speaker to another image. And we wanted to tie the whole thing together. And so what we did was we made the last image of one speaker relate to the first image of the next speaker. So for example, the bear went to Smokey. And to do that, we loosened up the rules a little bit. and didn't always use anagrams. So every speaker had an anagram, and then they usually had something where we were just using letters from their name to get from one piece to the next. We also used cuts to get from between each shot, and this was really to make the whole thing a lot more manageable. A lot of what we do uses transitions, really interesting ways to get from one thing to the next. Using cuts is, what it did was it meant that we had all these kind of small contained projects that we could divide up to the team that we were working with for the first time. The typography, we also wanted to be a thread throughout the piece, so that basically the text would kind of split up and reorganize itself and then come back together. And we also designed it in a way that it would match our geometric, symmetrical illustrations. So let's have a look at a little clip from the final piece.
Albert Pumas. Abs, more, lots. Graham Happy.
Nips, flex my nips.
Look, Ryan, honey, honey. Bear. Smokey. Jason Spiders and even worse.
Monkey's gonna sanitize worm jars.
Joe, monkey, rat.
Tank diver. Kevin Dart. Bullseye.
Cool. So, and a quick, thank you. A really quick shout out to Ant Food who did the audio for this. They absolutely smashed it, and they really set the tone for the piece and brought a lot to the table. And so, coincidentally, the very next project that we got in the shop was a geometric-based, 2D flat character-based style. And so we were able to immediately kind of implement what we'd learned during the Blend project on these spots for Oscar.
Health insurance should be as simple as getting sick. So at Oscar, most preventive care, like flu shots, are free. Phew.
And since then we've gone on to do a lot of this kind of 2D work. This is a spot that we recently did for Bridgespan. And we've continued to develop as a team and kind of work on different projects. This was another 2D spot that was at the Australian Tennis Open, where we had these massive screens that wrapped around the main courts there. So on to the next side project. So TEDx. So we were approached by Common, who approached eight different studios and artists in Sydney to help them collaborate and make the title sequence for TEDx 2016. The reasons why we did it: number one, open creative; number two, it was only 10 seconds long; and number three, we wanted to be involved in the local design community. And so the rules were very simple. Essentially, they gave everyone an X, and you had your first frame and your last frame had to have this X in it. And that was all the direction we had. And so we did some research, and we came across this film called The Powers of 10, which was made in 1977 by Charles and Ray Eames. And if you haven't seen this, you should go watch it. It's on YouTube, and it's really incredible. Essentially, it's a 9-minute movie, and it starts off with these guys having a picnic, and then every 10 seconds, the view pulls back by 10 times the amount. So to the power of 1. And it keeps going all the way back until you didn't realize that space could be so big. And all the time there's this narration, and then it zooms all the way back in at a faster pace, and then it goes into the guy's hand, and then it keeps going further and further into his skin until you get to a single proton. It's a really cool spot, and we felt like this really spoke to the amount of the large variety of topics on show at TEDx. And so essentially we made an ode to the power of 10 in 10 seconds. These are some of our style frames, and I think, it's a much looser style. There's a little bit of grit in there, and I think it was probably a subconscious reaction against all of the very organized, clean 2D commercial work we'd been doing at the time. It's a little bit wonky, it's a little bit playful. So this is what we made. So short and sweet. So, while this didn't necessarily lead to more work, we were able to experiment a slightly different style, and we were able to be part of something fun and part of the local community. And then the last project I want to show you is perhaps our biggest undertaking. So Walmart, so the Wool Company of Australia, approached us with a really fantastic script that they'd written. It was a character-driven story which followed a character through 4 different time periods as he discovered the benefits of merino wool, so that it's a heat regulator, it's non-stinky, and it's warm. And so we started off the process looking at our options. A very familiar 2D style, very similar to Blend. Something maybe a little bit closer to TEDx, where it's a little bit looser and more illustrative, a little bit more detailed. And then we thought, we could do a 3D option, a 3D execution. Now, on paper, doing this in 3D didn't make sense because there was a very decent budget for this, but the budget wasn't going to support what we were putting forward if we were to move forward with a 3D execution. But like I said, fantastic story. And what I haven't told you is it had a really long timeline. I think it was 9 months. And so what that meant was, it's a lot longer than what we usually would get for a project like this. And so what that meant is we could work with a lot of freelancers that we hadn't worked with in the city. We could get a 3D job under our belt, and maybe we could, find some people to hire, which we did. And so we decided to invest some of our own time into this and make this film. And I'm just going to play a small, and again, I'm just going to play a small clip from that now. All right, so I'm going to do a quick behind the scenes and kind of show you our process for a 3D job, a bit of an elevator pitch, if you will. So we always start with storyboards, and this is a chance for us to kind of work out the storytelling and the nuts and bolts of the piece, and work out the composition and choose some shots, some camera angles, and that sort of thing. These are our first sketches for the caveman and the sheep, who are the main characters in the piece. And then we move into, once we have our final characters, these are all of the cavemen, we do color exploration in 2D, because it's a lot faster than doing it on the 3D assets. So the characters get modeled. The red you see there is just kind of us doing draw-overs to kind of show the changes we'd like made to the models. And in this particular job, we wanted the textures to feel very, very real. So we wanted very graphic shapes, but very lifelike materials. And so we started to pull some reference to show what we wanted everything to be made out of. And then it starts getting made. So you see the model, you see the textures on there, and it looks great. They've nailed it. They've got the colors right, and they've got the fur. It looks awesome. But right about now, we realize that there's a bit of a problem because it looks like he just went and bought that from the store, And we wanted this to feel really old and gross, like I've been wearing it for years and years. And so there's often a lot of back and forwards in projects like this where you find something that you hadn't really thought about before. Anyway, so here's this kind of old and stinky number. And here's a close-up of the innovator. And what I love about this job is the really kind of organized geometric shapes. So their shape's very similar to what you saw in Blend, but they're on a 3D object. And what I also love, like I said, is the use of quite real-looking textures, again, on very, very minimal and reduced shapes. And we consider everything, from the silhouette of the character down to the rope that she's wearing around her, to the little war paint on her cheeks. Now, wool was obviously very important for the client, being Walmart. And we start off with this, which I reckon is more like a kind of shaggy dog. And it took us a lot of R&D to get to this kind of nice, warm, woolly state. And it wasn't just the wool that was important, but it was also all of the other material had to feel the opposite of that. So the cotton had to feel kind of thick and old and tired and worn, and the 80s lycra had to feel kind of saggy and a little bit gross. And we don't only use like the image to show this sort of thing. We have the power of animation. So we can show the innovator wearing cotton and he's exhausted. Whereas the merino sheep, she's cranking, you know. And then when they're all wearing merino, they're all smiles and they're all cranking. So anyway, the sets, we start off with what we call a speed paint, which is a black and white image, laying out the composition and working out what we want to have in there. That then gets taken into color, and we do a color key. And here we're looking at the color, the light source, and the temperature of the shot. And this really sets the mood or the tone of the shot. And then we take every element in this piece, and it goes through a design phase. So I've got some examples here. What does the fire look like? How does the fire move? You know, what about the sign out the front? What about the moose inside? And then all of these things go through the 3D process of being modeled and textured. And then sometimes we go way too far, like when we designed these punny labels to go on the bottles that you never see. So those are up on those bottles in the top right-hand corner there. So after Wool Market was really successful, everyone had a great time. We hired a couple of people off the back of it. And the next job that we got to work on happened to be a 3D job. It was this job for Cadbury and Oreo. And after this, someone in Shanghai saw that we knew how to do Oreos, and so we did this spot for Oreo. My point being that you can really join the dots with a lot of our projects, and you really can kind of see that how one project has influenced the next project you do. So you really get to drive, you can, if you invest some time into some side projects, you can kind of drive where your work goes. So I think it's definitely worth us investing in the occasional project for all of the reasons I've stated, not just to get more work, but to add to the culture of the company. And we've started to up our social game. And we use Instagram now as a way to kind of house smaller side projects. You know, stuff that's a little bit less precious, a little bit more raw and not quite as polished. And so you can follow us on Instagram. We're trying to be good and be active. And you can check us out online, buck.tv. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me.